So today we're going to learn the last form of linear equations that we're going to talk about. Today it's called standard form. So before we do standard form, I want to review slope-intercept form and point-slope form. If you remember what slope-intercept form and point-slope form is, I encourage you to turn off the video and just write it in and then check back to see if you're right. So slope-intercept form is the form y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. And don't forget, y equals kx is still an equation in slope-intercept form. It just has another name called direct variation. Okay? But this is just slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. And that form, again, remember, tells us what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. And then we've got point-slope form. So point-slope form is y minus y sub 1 equals m, and then in parentheses, x minus x sub 1. So again, this one tells us the point. Remember, the point is that's the y value, that's the x value, but because it's subtraction, we're going to pull out the opposites, and then it tells us the slope. So what it tells us is in the form, okay? Now, some equations look like what you see here, 2x minus 3y equals negative 16. This is standard form. Now the form is this. It's a, and we use a big A, x plus b y equals c. And all we're going to talk about right now is how to put things in standard form. It doesn't actually tell us a slope, it doesn't tell us a y-intercept, but at the very end I will answer how we can use it to be useful, okay? So standard form is when an equation looks like this. Now, the other big piece is this bit right here. When an equation is in standard form, a, b, and c must be integers with a GCF of 1, and a must be a positive integer greater than 0. Okay, so let's take a look at this right here. This is in standard form. So look at these. Integers. If they're integers, you have to make sure that they're not fractions or decimals, right? So there are no integers, are all your positive and negative numbers, no fractions. Okay, so you can't have fractions, no fractions. Okay, and so a, in this case, we would say a is the coefficient of x, so that's 2. B is the coefficient of y, so that's negative 3, and c is the constant, which is negative 16, okay? And then look to see, do they have a GCF of 1? They do. Is there a number that 2, negative 3, and negative 16 all go into besides 1? No. Then we need to make sure that a is positive. Notice it does not matter if b or c are negative. We only need a to be positive. So let me give you some helpful tips on how to put things in standard. So the very first thing, we need to make sure that a and b are on the same side of the equal sign, and it's equal to the constant, right? Because the form, I'm going to write it again so we have something to look at. The form is ax plus by equals c. So my first tip would be get x and y to the left and the constant to the right. And what I mean by that is to the left of the equal sign. Okay, so I'll say equal sign there. Okay? The next thing I would do is make sure you don't have any fractions. So if you have any fractions, we can get rid of fractions by clearing the fraction. So you're going to clear the fraction. And remember, how do I clear a fraction? If I've got fractions, what do? I multiply all terms by the common denominator of the fraction. So clear the fraction by multiplying all terms, and it's important that you remember all terms, that's the mistake people make, by the least common denominator. So I'm going to say by the LCD, the least common denominator of the fractions. So if there's just one fraction, then you just multiply by the denominator. If there's two fractions, like 1/3 and 2/5, then you multiply by 15. 1/3 and 2/5, that has a common denominator 15. Okay, so we clear the fraction. The next thing is we make sure a, which is the coefficient of x. So the first term, the coefficient of x, is positive. And if it's not positive, this is what we do. We multiply by -1. Or we could multiply by any negative number if we're clearing a fraction. So 2 and 3 could be done in the same step. So, or a negative LCD. So if none of this is making sense to you right now, that's okay. Stay tuned. We're going to do it. All right? But I just think it's important to go ahead and write down the tips so you have something to look at. And then the last thing we have to remember is that it's got to have a GCF of 1. Okay? So we will write down here to make sure the GCF is 1. If it's not 1, what we're going to do, so we'll write if not, divide all terms by the GCF. All right, let's do a few. So number 1, first thing we need to fix. X and y are not on the same side of the equal sign, and we want them to be on the left side of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And you want to make sure that you write the x first. You might want to look at this and say, I'm going to write 10y minus 2x, but you don't want to do that. The x should go first. So it goes ax plus by equals c. So then I'm going to write negative 2x. The 10y is positive, so I write plus 10y equals 5. Now, that is not in standard form because the first term, and we're only looking at the a term, this guy right here is negative. So to get rid of that negative, we are going to multiply everything by -1. Everything. So negative 2x times -1 is positive 2x. And then 10y times -1 is negative 10y equals 5 times -1 is negative 5. Then double check. There's no fractions. And is there a GCF? There's not. 2, -10, -5 do not have anything in common other than 1. So that right there is your standard form. Okay. The next one, number 2. Let's get the x with the y. So we're going to subtract 3x. Subtract 3x. And what I have is negative 3x plus y equals 1/2. Notice I put the negative 3x first because I need x to be first. So now I've got 2 issues here. Issues that I wrote down for 2 and 3. The tips for 2 and 3. The first term is negative, and then I have a fraction in there. So what we can do, instead of multiply everything by -1, you don't have to. You can multiply everything by -1 and then clear the fraction, but we can do it in one step. Instead, to clear the fraction, I've got to multiply by 2. Because the first term, that a, -3 there, this guy right here is negative, we're going to multiply by -2. So multiply everything by -2. And then we're going to clear the fraction and clear that negative x as well. So when I do that, negative 3x times -2 is 6x. And y times -2 is negative 2y is equal to, well, half of -2 is -1. And then double check. Do I have a number that needs to get divided out? 6, 2, and 1? Nope. So I'm good. That is standard form. ax plus by equals c. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one, let's go ahead. Get the x to one side. So I'm going to subtract 3/5 x. From both sides. Subtract 3/5 x. So I'm going to have negative 3/5 x first plus y equals, that canceled out, so that equals -1/3. Okay? Again, the coefficient of x is negative, so I've got to multiply everything by a negative, and then because I have 2 fractions, 3/5 and 1/3, I'm going to multiply by -15. So you multiply everything by -15. So now this little bit down here, I'm just going to write to remind you. When you multiply -3/5 times 15, remember you're cross-canceling, right? It's like 15 over 1. So 5 goes into 15 3 times. So -3 times, -15 gives us, and that's a -3. -3 times -3 is +9. So another way to think about it again is to say, well, what's -3/5 of -15, or what's 3/5 of 15? Since 1/5 of 15 is 3, then 3/5 must be 9, right? Okay, keep going. So we did it here, here. So now we're going to multiply y by negative 15. So it's now minus 15y. And then equals, well, negative 1/3 times negative 15. Well, 1/3 of 15 is 5. Good. So now we look, and does 9, negative 15, and 5 have anything that we can pull out of it? No. So the GCF is 1, so we've got it. We're good. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at number 4. Number 4, we need x and y on one side of the equal sign. So let's get the y over there. So we're going to subtract 2y. Subtract 2y. Cancel out the 2y on the right. So now I have, I'm going to write it down here, 12x minus 2y equals 4. So in this one, my first term is positive. That's good. There are no fractions. Is my GCF 1? And the answer to that is no. I can divide 12, 2, and 4 by 2. So we're going to divide the whole thing out. Divide the entire thing. So divide everything by 2. It's like reducing. That's what we're doing. We're reducing the whole equation. So 12x divided by 2 is 6x. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I have minus 1y, which is just y, equals 2. And now you're done. That is your answer. So stop the video right now, and I want you to try 5 and 6 on your own. So if you did this correctly, you should have gotten, for number 5, 2x minus 3y equals negative 12. And for number 6, you should have gotten 8x plus 12y equals 1. If you got both of those correct, then go ahead and fast forward the video just a little bit until you get to my explanation again on how to use standard form on x and y intercepts. If you didn't get these correct, then tune in and I'm going to explain them right now. So for number 5, you're going to subtract 2/3 x from both sides. So I'm going to end up with negative 2/3 x plus y is equal to 4. And then you have to clear that fraction. So I'm going to multiply everything here by negative 3. And then when you multiply everything by negative 3, negative 2/3 times 3 is just 2, right? So I have 2x minus 3y equals negative 12. And that's how I got the answer. The next one, what I did for number 6 is I went ahead and I added, so it says negative 2x plus 1/4 equals 3y. What I did is I went ahead and just added 2x to both sides, like that. And then what I did is I put this first, because you want the x and the y to come first. So it's going to be 2x plus 3y equals 1/4. And then you can't have a fraction. And so then what I'm going to do is multiply everything by 4. And when you multiply everything by 4, you end up getting that right there. So this is just a little extension now of the lesson. You don't have this on your paper, but you're welcome to write it down somewhere else, or just stay tuned and know this is here for you to come back to listen to. But don't stop the video, you should be listening to this. So I get the question all the time is, why do we need standard form? You'll get more standard form when you get into Algebra 2, but one of the ways that I use standard form is when I'm finding x and y intercepts, right? If you have an equation in standard form, it's super easy to find your x and your y intercepts. So for example, just a reminder, remember the x-intercept is the value of x when y is 0, and your y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0. So I want you to just take this form for a second. Ax plus by is equal to c. So if I am asking you to find the x-intercept, what I'm asking you to do is find the value of x when y is 0. So let's just take a look at this for a second. If I have ax plus b times 0 equals c, well, let's think about this. What happens to the b times 0? Well, b times 0 is going to be 0 no matter what. So what I'm left with is simply an equation that says ax equals c. So really easy. I know that to get my x value, I'm going to have to divide the c and the a. So you can get that x-intercept is c over a, right? So that's one way. The other way, to find your y-intercept, you don't have to put it in slope-intercept form to get the y-intercept. If you just take this, you're putting 0 right here for x. So you're multiplying x by 0 because it's the value of y when x is 0. That cancels out, and what you're solving, oops, that should say 0, or c. So what you're solving is by equals c. So then you divide by b, and you get that the y-intercept is going to be your value of c over b. So let me show you an example of what I just did. So suppose I have the equation 2x plus 3y is equal to 12, and I say, graph this. You can put it in slope-intercept form, which is a great way of doing it, and graph it with your slope and your y-intercept. Or really quickly, if you look at this, you can just very quickly get 2 points. You can get your x-intercept and your y-intercept. So if you look, to get your x-intercept, I'm just going to solve the equation 2x equals 12. And to get the y-intercept, I'm going to solve the equation 3y equals 12. Right? Because what happens when I put y in for 0 here, that term goes away, and I'm just left with 2x equals 12. Well, you can solve that. Divide by 2, and you get x is equal to 6. So that's the ordered pair, 6, 0. Over here, if I take this, the 3y equals 12, that's because if I put 0 in for x, that 2x goes away, and you're left with 3y equals 12. We'll divide by 3, and you get that y is equal to 4. Well, that's the y-intercept. That's what you get. You would get 0, 4. And so you could just graph this equation by finding 6, 0, and 0, 4. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Suppose that's 6, 0, and then 0, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have a point right there, and boom, you found the line. And you can find the rise over the run of that to get the slope and find more points if you want to. Okay, so that's a way to get x and y intercepts. Stay tuned for one more just to make sure that you totally get it. Sometimes it's less helpful if you end up getting a fraction for your x or y intercept. It doesn't mean you can't graph it though, right? So like suppose I have like 4x minus 3y equals 10. So if I'm doing this, it's less helpful, but you can still find your x and y intercepts, right? So suppose if I want my x-intercept, well, that would be, I'm going to cancel out the y, right? Because if I put 0 in, I'm explaining it again, if I put 0 in for y, this goes away and I get 4x equals 10, right? So I have 4x equals 10. And then you would have to divide by 4. And then you would get x is equal to, well, 10 over 4 reduces to 5 over 2, or let's make it a mixed number so that we know where that is on the graph. 5 over 2 is 2.5. So the x-intercept would be 2.5, 0. Suppose I'm trying to find the y-intercept. Remember, I'm putting 0 in for x here. Well, 4 times 0 is 0, so that goes away. You're left with this equation to solve. So what I have is negative 3y equals 10, divide by negative 3, and you get y is equal to negative 10 over 3. And then, well, that is a fraction, so that's going to be the ordered pair. 0, well, negative 10 over 3 is just negative 3 and 1/3. So like that doesn't help all that well for graphing, but you could get like a basic sketch, right? Like if I'm going to graph this guy right here, my x-intercept is 2.5, right? So 2.5 is probably somewhere right there, and my y-intercept's negative 3 1/3, so 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 3 1/3 is probably somewhere right there. So we're estimating we couldn't really get a good slope from this, but you could definitely estimate about where the line is on the graph. So this is just a reminder of a fast way to find x and y intercepts when your equation is in standard form. And this is also part of your homework. So what I want you to do now is finish the back of the sheet that you were just working on, and then go ahead and get started on the homework.